Hey folks, welcome back to the Change Physician Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, with my co-host, Dr. Melissa Cady. And for today, we have a repeat guest is Dr. Vicki Chan, also known as the TikTok master.
Gave you another name.
Maybe another name better than that. But no, what she was going to talk about today is direct sales. And reason this is important is there are many physicians who are doing quite well in direct sales and finding it a useful way to supplement or even replace their income, and actually to construct and craft lives that are meaningful and quite different than traditional practice, but still helping a lot of people. Now, how can you help people by doing sales? Well, we're going to find out today. So Vicki, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me again.
So just to start off then, what is direct sales?
So direct sales is exactly what it sounds like. You are selling directly to the consumer, right? So, I'm no consumer expert, but, typically when you buy something, you go to a store, right? Mm-hmm. Or you go to a website where they've stocked inventory and you buy off that website or from the store, right? Direct sales is the idea that you are actually taking the product from the company and you're selling it directly. So there's more and more of that going on now, right? Where you're buying directly, but there's no middleman essentially. Mm-hmm. So that is direct sales, right? So I work for a company and they create the product and I sell it directly to the consumer, right? There's no store.
There's got to be an advantage then, both for the consumer as well as the business.
Yeah, because there's no overhead there, right? Yeah. So you don't have to pay that overhead to be in a big store, a big department store, or a big mall or whatever, right? So you take out that overhead, which is nice, right? And either that goes to the consumer or it goes to me as the marketing arm, right? That I get some of that profit.
All right. Or both. It's sort of like a win-win-win relationship because the company gets motivated sellers like you to sell a product that they obviously believe in, because then they have you to be the primary advertising wing, and they can sell it at a cost that is useful to the consumer and provides you a commission and actually makes the business profit. So that actually seems like win-win-win, which you don't see a lot in a lot of our other businesses, I would say.
Yeah. And then there's another kind of model where you hear a lot about, it's called multi-level marketing, where you have the direct sales part, and then you have the option of building your own sales team, right? So I say it's like a franchise model almost, right? Because you can make so much by yourself. So I always say say the first Starbucks, right? Like they could make so much money in 24 hours in one location, right? But when you start opening up other stores, training other employees, training other sales staff, then you can multiply that income, right? So then for me, I have that option. I don't have to, but I have the option to build my own sales team and then train them, and then we're all making money. Mm-hmm. What's nice about multi-level marketing is, and people will say this, there's this residual passive income that comes in, because again, you can sell so much yourself, but if you can train a team to also sell, the way the company works is you train them up front, essentially for free, right? But then you make a percentage of their sales. Mm-hmm. It's like a royalty almost, right? And so that is very intriguing because you create a larger team. And so you're making, at the beginning, my business model was, I just made whatever I sold, right? Now, 5-6 years into it, a large chunk of my income now comes from my team, who I have trained and I still do. I train, I support, I help them, and they build their businesses. They always make their larger cut. That's how it works. And then I make a small cut of what they make.
But and that also gives you so much more flexibility, because you may be a physician who doesn't like a lot of teams, who maybe doesn't want to necessarily manage a bunch of individuals or work with a bunch of individuals. Yeah. I'm going to make a stereotypical comment and say maybe you're a pathologist and you don't want to talk to other people other than who you're selling to. So then you have the opportunity to develop your sales streams. So you're one-on-one to customers, where you're getting residual with the recurring consumption. Or if you enjoy working with your peers and colleagues, you can recruit your peers and colleagues to go into this model and support them, helping them to create a business and a side income, while also benefiting yourself. And I just love that, because it seems like there's multiple angles that you can go with this, and it keeps being a win-win-win relationship.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm kind of curious. Well, first of all, for those listening, if you haven't listened to the full episode of Dr. Chan's story, you should go back and watch that episode. She's an ophthalmologist who now works part-time doing ophthalmology, but is definitely very heavily involved in social media and direct sales. But my question for you is this, when it comes to the products that you're selling, I guess my first question is, did you kind of hesitate to build a team at first until you felt comfortable with just direct sales and or using the product yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Right. So there are people who build a business entirely just by selling products, and that's almost the easier way, right? Like you use the products, you love it, and then you talk about it, right? So it probably took me a few months before I was like, hey, like I have a handle on this whole marketing thing that I think I could train somebody.
Yeah.
I can hold their hand and do it. The nice thing too is a lot of direct sales companies, they have training systems in place, and so you could always use that. So I could have technically, found a business partner day one, and then we would both have learned, because there's training systems in place where we can learn from either the company itself or from people who have been in it longer, and that's part of it also, where you have people, the multi-level marketing aspect of it is when you bring in someone, there's always someone there who's been in it longer who can train you and teach you. Right. So that's kind of the training model. So it's almost like medicine. You have the attending, you have the resident. Someone comes in and you learn from everyone above you. Right. So I actually thought it was a lot like that.
Yeah.
I love that analogy, by the way. And because I know if anybody's heard the name MLM, there is one thing they may be thinking, and that's the whole idea of a pyramid scheme. I like the residency analogy, because I would guess residency is not a pyramid scheme. Exactly. But how would you describe this if people had that concern about, well, it sounds like she's talking about a pyramid scheme?
Yeah. So a pyramid scheme, I don't know where that came from. I guess it's just the idea of bringing someone in, right? So that whole concept of, you bring somebody in, that's a pyramid scheme. So by definition, a pyramid scheme is when you recruit a person and you take their money and there is no exchange of product, service, right? So that's where the whole, you invest in you're just taking their money, and that money goes up the pyramid, right? That's illegal. You can't do that.
Bernie Madoff. That's
money, right?
Yeah.
But with direct sales, with multi-level marketing, you are selling a product or service, right? There is an exchange that's happening, right? We're not just taking someone's money. So they give us money and we give them a product. And
that actually brings up one piece that I had just thought about that then is, so you actually just take the orders and then the orders go to the company who then provides directly to the consumer. You're not buying product.
No. Yeah. So
okay,
a lot of how it works now. So I guess if you think back to like the OG direct sales, so it's like Mary Kay or like the Tupperware, right? Mm-hmm. I guess they did have to have some inventory, right? Because that's just how it worked. You couldn't necessarily, but now with, the internet and with, sending things is like so commonplace, then that's how it works now. So we all have a website, and your customer would go to the website, they make the purchase, and they send it. There are some direct sales companies where they do have you carry inventory, but that's something you want to look at, right? So there are a lot of different direct sales companies out there. They're selling a lot of different things. They have different structures. Mm-hmm. So, when I talk to somebody, that is when, you want to kind of make sure you don't have to carry inventory, because that's money out of your pocket. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's something I do look at, and mine doesn't make you carry inventory. And that's huge.
It's, I don't even know if Kevin, you know this. So I've done several multi-level marketing. So I've done Equinox. I sold water filters. What other things? I was in Visalis recently. They've changed like names and different things they're doing. What's really fascinating about it is that there's a lot of personal development that goes on with these types of things, because there's a lot of psychology behind you actually, you know, engaging people and the way that it's the best received. And, you know, you want to create value for them, but that you don't want to, like, you know, bug them where it's like, okay, you just look like you're an opportunist being a salesman. But what was really the thing that draws people in is the community. It can be really invigorating and a lot of energy, even in personal development. Just going to some conference on the weekend, you feel this energy, and it just is so, it's kind of addictive. And the people that you meet are just outside your normal bubble, and so you expand your relationship. So you know, I think that's really a neat aspect to whatever new community that you build relationships on. But I guess my question is the psychology of you first start this direct sales and just knowing how to approach or just deal with the discomfort in yourself, worrying about people, what they're going to think of you. And just, can you just like dive into that a little bit of just dealing with that psyche aspect? Yeah,
I mean, like being in it for a while now and you have some experience, I mean, it's marketing, right? Like direct sales, I mean, we are marketing. Like you talk to any other marketer for any other company, you know, there's an aspect of putting yourself out there, right? Of getting rejection. Yes. I mean, that's just part of it, right? Yeah. And the persistence of it, like what you're saying, you want to follow up, you want to be persistent, but you don't want to be annoying. So there, I mean, there's all these things that you have to like think about to be a good marketer, right? And finding that balance. So yeah, so I mean, yeah, it took a lot of it took a lot of figuring it out. I think the way that my team, because I am sorry, that's my dog. It's so interesting because my team, we are made up of mostly doctors. Yeah. They're very interesting. And so we just like, we throw people into the thing. I'm like, you message 100 people. Yeah. Like that's how we did it, right? You just message 100 people, you'll figure it out as you go, you're gonna get a bunch of no's and you'll figure it out from there. And that's how we trained people. Yeah. You know, some people love it, some people don't, right? And there are other ways of training people where you like, you know, like you do a lot of practicing, right? Like you do one-to-one practice, like interview practice. And I guess as doctors, we don't do that, right? We just like, just go, like, yeah. Figure out as you go. And so that's how I learned. So I just kind of dove in, I sent out a bunch of messages, I got a bunch of no's, and I learned as I went what worked and what didn't. And it was a matter of being okay with the no's, you know, and that's the personal development, right? Like, you know, I always say like, your future is not based on other people's opinions, or your dreams or your goals are not based on what they think, right? They're not paying your bills. We always say that, right? Right. And so, the people pleasers too, there's a psychology there where, you know, they don't necessarily want to know. They don't want the no's because they don't know how to interpret that no. Yeah. There's a lot to learn from yeah, why people do or won't do certain things. So yeah.
And there's a lot to the no, right? There's like, why are people saying no and how are you framing information? Yeah. And I think the advantage that, and we haven't really touched on here, is you use your own products, don't you, Vicki? I mean, you are an advocate for the products that you're selling. And that creates a different relationship, because I don't think, you know, people from, you know, at least I'm going to go back to, you know, I don't know what other people thought, but what I thought about sales is you kind of think of like the used car salesman that has a bad product and is trying to manipulate somebody. And of course that exists, but true sales is really an exchange of value. Yes. And what I like about direct sales, the limited I know, is most people who I know are involved with it actually use the products. So it's not that they're trying to push something out that they don't believe in. It's that they're trying to support a product that they use and believe in and get others to see the value in it. So, and that's a little bit different kind of a no, because if people are saying no, then it becomes like, I don't know. For me, it's like, well, you don't necessarily take it as personal. It's more like, oh man, well, what do I need to say? Because I know this is so good and I know this person's going to like it, but I must not be telling them the things that they actually need to hear to understand what the value is. Yeah. So we always say too, like, you know, so say you're at a restaurant and your waitress comes and is like, hey, would you like ketchup?
right? I mean, you say no, and like the waitress doesn't take that personal, right? Maybe you don't like ketchup. Maybe you don't want ketchup with this meal. Maybe you're going to ask for it later. Like there's a lot of different reasons to say no. So you just try not to take it personal. And I've really come from the mindset of, not to take it personal. And I sometimes will come back and be like, oh, why not? Or like, oh, I just, more of curiosity versus taking it personally. And sometimes it'll come out like, oh, I had a bad experience, or I've already tried it in the past, or I'm using something that I love, which totally makes sense. I mean, why fix it if it ain't broke, right? I say that all the time. So yeah, I think learning not to take things personal, learning to see something from another person's point of view, trying to understand versus getting angry or feeling sensitive about it.
And you said that was actually gold advice right there. Cause now I'm thinking whether you are interested in sales or not, if you're a physician, that is such useful information coming from a place of curiosity. Cause what if you're seeing your patient and now you're recommending some sort of therapeutic action that you're like, I know that this person needs. And we always complain about people refusing. Well, they're non-compliant. They don't want this. Well, if you're not curious and you ask them, well, why not? You may not actually know the reasons, and it may be something that you can easily overcome. Maybe it's, I don't know the nature of the procedure or what you're recommending, or maybe I'm financially struggling and I'm scared of the cost involved. So that's such a beautiful piece of advice. And I just love that. So thank you bringing that, asking from a place of curiosity when someone says no.
Yeah, I want to add to that, just the assumptions we make as physicians for whether it's personal or with your patients or whatever it is. We have to be willing to step back and ask those questions, because I literally did the same thing with a patient who didn't want to quit smoking. And when I asked the person, what's the reason they don't want to quit, they thought when they quit, they'd get cancer. You would never thought that would be the thinking, but they thought the moment they stopped is when it happened. But when you think about it, some people in the past had smoked and then stopped and then they got so her interpretation was totally off, to me, it seems like total opposite of what you should be thinking. But it's a perfect example of like, you don't know unless you ask. Yeah. I was thinking about, this TikTok and the dancing and all the things. By the way, I was watching a whole bunch of them, forced my husband to watch some of them. And he's like, I'm not getting up there doing that like her and her husband do.
He says now. My husband says the same thing, but you see him on my TikToks. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I'm gonna have to work on that. But it seems like, like we talked about, there's a time where they might say no and somebody will maybe eventually be ready, yes, later. But it seems like if you can engage people on a consistent basis and are fun, and obviously being present in some form of social media, it seems like those things are really a critical component, and I would assume is what's kind of escalated your success in direct sales.
Yeah, I mean, it's part, the more I study about marketing and social media, I hear the progression, know, like, trust, right? So someone knows you, right? Like they meet you and they know you and they grow to like you, and then you provide them value and they grow to trust you. And then when they're ready to whatever, buy a product, have their own direct sales business, whatever, have a question, then they trust you enough to come to you. I mean, that's life in general, right? Like that's, if someone has a problem, they come to you because they know, like, and trust you, and that's what a good marketer does, for anything, you provide the value so that you become trusted. And that's kind of where I guess the whole social media thing is. I have realized that a lot of people, just for various reasons, and not just direct sales, but as a doctor, as a mother, as, someone who lives a somewhat unconventional life, like people have grown to like and trust me in all those aspects. And so, I'll get emails and texts just about all sorts of different things.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
So what then attracted you to your particular company? Like, why as a physician did you pick
Yeah.
And it's Rodan and Fields, I think, right?
Yeah. So it's Rodan and Fields. So, I mean, a couple things. I knew nothing. So, I can go back into my story. So I was working full time. My daughter was 1.5, and I was just really feeling stretched thin, and I had a moment, honestly, like things weren't really going well at work. And I just kind of realized that, I wasn't happy at work. I felt guilty at home. I just was always tired. And so I wasn't really 100% anywhere, and so I needed to make a change. And interestingly, around that time, my husband, he's an anesthesiologist. I call him a serial entrepreneur, like all with love. But, he's like, he'll try anything once. So he was the one who came across Rodan and Fields just because he's all about business. Someone brought it up to him, and he brought it to me around that time and was like, hey, you should look at this. There are other doctors doing well. Like, you should look at it, and I was like, heck no, like there's no, and I had all the same, we talk about like negative preconceptions of like a grimy salesperson, like, MLM, like, isn't that like Herbalife? Didn't they get in trouble? Like, there's all these things that I really didn't know anything. I just had heard of stuff. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, no, and plus I'm already so busy. I'm not going to start another business. Like, there's just no way. And then, fast forward, we're thinking about having our second, and life is just about to get that much harder, where you finally decide like, okay, well, it's going to get worse. So, so which of two evils, like start a business or it's going to get worse the way we're going. And around that time I had met a few other doctor moms doing it. And it was one of those like, well, if they can do it, and if they trusted the company, so Rodan and Fields specifically, they were founded by 2 dermatologists. So that was it's helpful, right? To know that, okay, so it's founded by 2 doctors, all these other doctors are doing it, why not? Right. So it's one of those things where I was like, okay, let's try it, and see what happens, knowing nothing, literally. And so at that point I hadn't used the products or anything. Like, it was more like, okay, let's do this and let's try it. And then, obviously I then felt, I started using the products. They have this sensitive skin light that totally worked on my daughter's eczema. So I was like sold. And then just like you said, I met a bunch of other women doing it. The community was amazing. It was all these people that had this different mindset of like, oh, like life is more about just work, or it's more than just surviving, right? It's actually like doing something and like bringing value and helping someone, so that was really helpful too, to have that whole community. Yeah.
It's interesting because there are so many, I don't know how many, but the little, like in the exposure I have, there seems to be quite a few physicians that are involved with direct sales, like more than you would expect, and quite a few that are involved with Rodan and Fields. And you can see how that can make a difference, because if it's your peers and colleagues now, it's almost a safer place to start with something that other physicians are doing. And I do like the fact, being a physician, that it was founded by 2 physicians. That's also something I kind of enjoy. So
yeah. That's a great
and I think it makes sense too for a lot of physicians, because direct sales, it is a business, but it's almost like a turnkey business, right? Like, because you're not building it from the ground up. I have a lot of friends, and it's doable. It's hard, right? To build a business from the ground up, right? You have to develop the product, get the patents, find manufacturers, build the website, hire the staff, there's just a lot of layers before you even can start marketing and make money, right? And so with direct sales in general, all of that back-end stuff's done for you. So you can dive in and just focus on the marketing and selling, because that's the profit part, right? And so I think as physicians, as busy professionals, direct sales is very appealing because you skip all that other stuff, right? And you can just go straight into the marketing and the selling and making a profit. And then for a lot of people, I've seen it actually also where you get kind of that taste and you figure out that part of medicine, and they go on and build another business because they have their head wrapped around this part of it. And then now they feel comfortable to like go do something else, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. No, I think there's something to say. We come from a system in the medical system that's kind of broken, but the system's in place. Yes. And we step into it, and that's the whole thing. You just start running with the system and realize there's so many issues going on there. But when you can get into a system and plug into a system that's much more efficient, obviously it's not insurance driven. I mean, it's a cash type business. So there's a simplicity there.
Yes.
You know, I think that's the key to a lot of, you know, if you can step into, why are you laughing, Kevin?
Well, because the way you're talking about it makes me just think of it's almost like we've have all these analogies of healthcare. So instead of, you have the sick healthcare system over here, and then you can take your same skill set and your credibility as a physician, and then you step into a working model that's got the residency model, you got the attendings, the residents, and the interns, and the systems in place. So just like in medicine, most of us in the office, all you're doing is focusing on education and sales, although we don't call it that, and realistically in the medical system we're pretty poor at it, but you go into a place where that's important and you're doing it in the right way, and then the product, just like in the healthcare system, is all the business management stuff and the delivery of whatever your OR materials or things like that is handled by the guys in the back. So
without the bureaucracy of Medicare, that is part of the residency.
You're making me want to do this. I'm like, hey, as physicians, we have these skills. Let's go into a system that actually supports it.
I've never actually like synthesized it like that. It's a system. You are stepping into a system which we as doctors are very used to. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, speaking of being kind of with an entrepreneur bend, I was in residency and was at a really nice house for some event. I don't remember. And of course, I had no shame in going up to the guy who owned the house. I just said, you know, I'm just curious, if there was one word or one answer you could give somebody on how to become financially free, his word was, or 3 words was, create a system. That was his answer. And it was brilliant. I've never forgotten it, obviously. And so every time I see a system or sense a system that someone else created that's, you know, reliable, that's the way to go. I mean, that's what I think. Unless you want to be part of creating a system. That's a lot more.
Well, that's the part of it. You know what? I talk to a lot of doctors who want to be entrepreneurs. I mean, I just happen to have a lot of doctor friends, right? Yeah. And that's always the thing. I don't know what to do, right? Like, I don't right? Because they don't know where to start or where to go, or there's, you know, and it's very overwhelming.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Well, and the other part about that is if you are interested in building a business, what you have learned through direct sales is the most important part of any business, which is sales and marketing, which is basically the life. It's the cardiovascular system of a business. It's it's the blood. And if you don't have that and you don't have it coming and pumping to where it needs to go, your business is dead to begin with. So it's neat that you've had the opportunity to actually go into a system that supports you to learn like the most vital skills for any sort of business that you can now use to develop and increase your own business and brand with them, or you can take those same skills and use them and apply in different other areas. So that's pretty cool. Again, I'm oh my God, maybe I need to go sign up for this stuff. I don't think I have the looks for skincare, but
well, maybe I'll try it out and let you know what I think.
No, but you're totally right, Kevin. Like, it's something that I felt like, oh, you know, I'm pretty good at this. I just had a conversation like, you know, I'm pretty good at this social media thing. And, you know, same thing. Like, I have other friends that have an awesome, like my husband, for example, my husband, right? He creates podcasts and he has a blog and he's done very well without social media, right? Imagine if he had social media. I've told him so many times, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you just need to, and he'll say things like, you know, and he won't even tell his friends or whatever. And like, I'll make one, like, you know, I'm so proud of him. I'll make one post, like he had a podcast, like a webinar seminar thing. And I did one post on my, and I got however many sales. I'm like, yeah, because these are the people who know, trust, and like us already. And you're offering them an amazing value product. Of course, they're going to check it out and buy into it. I mean, it's almost silly of you not to do it, you know, like
of all people, he's the entrepreneur.
Yeah, he hasn't. You know, and I have to push
maybe
him.
we should interview him.
Yeah. And he'll do like Facebook ads and like
Yeah.
affiliate, you know, and like do all these other things, but he won't post on his own Facebook. Doesn't make any sense to me.
We got to ask the question why.
Yeah, that is a good why.
Maybe we can prod him a little bit on a future episode. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm, you know, Kevin, do you have any other questions before?
I do. I would say, so if we have a physician out there and we've been talking about this stuff and we're making it sound so intriguing at a minimum to learn a very useful skill set, what's the first 2 steps you would say for them to take? They're interested in this. Where would you direct them to go?
So I would reach out to somebody. So again, there's a lot of companies out there. They sell a whole bunch of different things, right? So I would start doing your research because you want to, of course, be part of a company that you believe in. You want to sell a product that you actually like, you know, and you want to team up with somebody who you trust, right? Because that will be your person that will guide you and support you and teach you. And so I would, do your research and reach out to somebody who you trust, who is in that business to help guide you.
I have a question on the sustainability then, because and particularly with skincare, it almost seems like, so you go out, you sell the product, the person purchases. Your commission is based on that purchase, but then with a lot of skincare, it becomes something that they renew, right? If you use your cleanser monthly, so then they're ordering. Do you get a residual from that?
Yes, so you get it from every single order. Yes. Okay. So that's a consideration too. So when people are looking for, well, what kind of company do you want to be involved in? Skincare is a good one. You know, skincare, hair care, those are good because there are consumable products that you'll need, you know, makeup, right? You use them over and over again. Other things, and I'm not saying that they're good, bad, or bad companies, but like how many frying pans do you need? How many pairs of knives? How many leggings does a person really need, right? So those are things you just want to think about, you know, when you're looking at any sales, right? Sales in general, you want to be selling a consumable product that people will come back for.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you again for coming back on the Change Physician podcast, Vicki, Dr. Chan. And I'm sure we're going to find something else that we're just going to ask you to do in the future. But I would definitely suggest, you know, if anybody is listening and is curious, I know she suggested finding your guide, but if what she's doing interests you, there'll be ways for you to find Vicki on this episode or on any of our social media links where we share things. So from myself, Dr. Melissa Cady, with my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and our lovely guest, Dr. Vicki Chan, I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode, and make sure to check out thechangephysician.com.